But just before we get into it, I'll just set the scene. Obviously, they are 0-4 now. The first 3 games, there was some hope, especially after the first game. Most of the talk was actually positive, despite the fact they lost to Richmond. But then they've gone on to lose to the Suns, the Magpies, and then they got handed an 86-point thumping by North Melbourne, who, I want to put it out there first, that North Melbourne deserves some credit. They were very good. Well done.
Was
impressive. Yep, was impressive.
I love playing there.
But it was equally unimpressive from Carlton. Where do the problems begin?
Well, Carlton are the worst run club in this millennium.
Yeah, that has been your hot take of the week.
Kevin
Is it a hot
Sheedy,
take?
Yeah,
Kevin Sheedy called them the brown bags
the Sheedster.
because of, the money outside of the system. That's how they've always run the club.
The Vizzy deal.
They've always looked for a messiah, Carlton.
Christian.
You go back to Ron Barassi, recruiting Ron Barassi in the 60s. Then you go to John Elliott with all his money in the 80s. Getting the players from South Australia, Sticks Kernahan and Craig Bradley. Then again in the 90s, getting Greg Williams and the Cooter contract, all that. It's always been about money with that club. They've never, ever done a rebuild. This one time we think they're doing a rebuild. This is the first time in Carlton's history they're doing a rebuild, and they're not doing it properly.
It's not working very well.
Brendon Bolton's on a rolling 1-year contract. That shows to me that they don't believe in him as their coach. It looks like they got him there as the person to start this rebuild, but then once they become good, they're going to try and get a Paul Roos, or they're going to try and get Alistair Clarkson out of his contract, something like that. Someone that they think is going to take the club forward.
It's not fair on Bolton. Like, how are you supposed to have, you can't do anything if you're so worried. Like, you're not going to try anything new because you're so worried about losing your position. Like, he's got to have some certainty.
How many players have they recruited from GWS? The players...
They are the GWS Blues.
The players they recruit are the players that can't get into the GWS first team. No matter how good or how skilled we believe those players are, if GWS don't think they're good enough for their first team, how are they going to make Carlton better than what GWS are going to be? And GWS are probably one of the best teams in the competition and are likely to win a grand final. How are those players, like Matthew Kennedy...
They're the list cloggers.
How are they going to get Carlton to be better than the bar, which is GWS at the moment?
They're not setting the bar very high. I think GWS is a little too high for the bar, but yeah.
Do you compare it to, say, a few years back, Richmond, when they short-circuited, and Collingwood even, short-circuited their rebuilds and topped up with those mid-aged players?
Richmond didn't do that because Richmond's rebuild, when Damien Hardwick first went to the Tigers, they were being compared to Fitzroy of the late 90s. But if you look at it, they lost their first 9 games in Hardwick's first season. Then they won 6 for the remainder of the season.
Ben Cousins was on that list, by the way.
That's true. Then the year after, they won 8.5 games. The year after that, 10.5 games. And then they made finals. Carlton Brendon Bolton's in his 3rd season, and there's no improvement.
Yeah. I think the issue for them as well is they have so many young players. Like that 18 to 22, they're stacked. But then from that 23 to 28, 29, there's really no one. Yeah. Outside of your 1 or 2, your Mark Murphy, Dale Thomas, Ed Curnow, Cruiser, they just don't have anyone.
And we know Charlie Curnow and Patrick Cripps are guns.
Yes.
But they're turning them into these messiahs again. Like they're the future. They're going to take the club all the way. Patrick Cripps is a very, very good player. But I saw him in round 1.
You're putting too much responsibility on him.
The problem is he is terrible with disposal. Yeah. His efficiency on the weekend was 47%.
He's got the same problem as Danger and Fife, those kind of guys, in terms of they get the ball in contested possessions, but it's how they use it.
They got the wrong captain. Mark Murphy is not a captain that's going to lead you. When you've got a young list like this, you need someone there that's actually going to carry the players. Mark Murphy isn't someone like that. If I was them, I would have given the captaincy to Cade Simpson. Exactly how the Western Bulldogs gave it to Bob Murphy.
And I mean, they're not going to have Murphy for the next 4 weeks. He's been ruled out for a month with that plantar fascia issue. I mean, just on the field, obviously we are talking about it, but structurally, so much of Bolton's first 2 years were about defence and defensive principles, because after Malthouse's last year, where they ranked dead last in terms of defensive efficiency, points conceded, he really went to work on the defensive side of the game, which is not a bad thing. I think that's a good structure to start with. It's what we've seen with Melbourne, where they were really defensive and they've tried to build on top of that with the offense, which we're going to get to later, is showing hiccups at the moment. But this year he seemed to swing the focus, and there's a lot more focus on the offense.
It was the step forward.
But what's happened is, yes, at times they've looked all right. Yes, they kicked 95 points against the Tigers. But, I mean, they've looked inept at other times. They kicked 30 points against North Melbourne. And the defense has just fallen to
The one thing about the defense is they've got so
shreds.
many players out of that defense.
Yeah.
Sam Doherty, Sam Rowe,
And
those
we
types.
know Wiedering's form has been...
Marchbank's out as well. They've got a lot of players out of that defence, but their forward line isn't good enough. Casbolt
You can't rely on him.
Casbolt's been all right this season. He's kicked a few goals, but he's not the future.
No.
Where's Mackay? Why doesn't he get a game?
Yeah, there's a couple of... I mean, the other thing is Bolton, like, when he started, he's all Mr. Happy-go-lucky. He's always smiling. You can tell now, like, he's really starting to just throw out the media team's line of this is where we're at.
Did you see all the times he was looking down at his notes?
I think it is starting to get to him a little bit, which is a bit interesting. But yeah, some of those youngsters. But the issue as well is like they were playing last year. They were playing like a man behind the ball the whole time. Whether now they're not doing that, and it's exposing guys like Liam Jones, who's now like trying to come off his defender, but he's not actually defending his player. And because they don't have that extra man, he's getting caught out.
It's been found out. He's not as good as what we all, well, everyone
He
believed
might be all
he
right
was.
if he's allowed to play the intercept defender, but he's being shown up as a one-on-one, and he's making bad decisions in terms of choosing when to go and when not to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something for him to work on. And then on top of that, it doesn't really get much easier because they've got West Coast who are surging, the Bulldogs who suddenly look like they've found some spirit, the Crows, Essendon, Melbourne, Geelong, the Swans.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I wish Brownie were here for that reaction.
Did they get a priority pick?
Yeah, well,
Well, like
They'll
they're
go
asked
many
for
more
now,
games, are they?
They'll ask for it.
Yeah.
they could very well be 0-11. Like, they're going to go into all of those games underwhelming, like, underdogs.
Yeah.
And then even their next one, so at 0-11, they'd verse Fremantle. And right now, I'd pick Fremantle over them.
Not just a win, it'll be a smashing.
Yeah, I mean, and
Where,
then...
is that at Etihad?
I don't know where that one's at, but, I mean...
That's in
Imagine
Western
if
Australia.
they're
Play West
0-11.
Coast at Perth Stadium, so I'm guessing it's over here, the Freo game.
Yeah, and as we said, the issue is at the moment, yes, they've got so many kids. And, like, if you just look at it, even North Melbourne, like, as much as we say they're rebuilding, up forward, you've got Ben Brown. You've got Waite as well, who's an experienced older player. You've got Robbie Tarrant. You've got Goldsteins. You've got
Scott Thompson.
Higgins. You've got Cunninghams. You've got Cunnington.
That's why they're not
It's
as
well
yeah.
layered.
they're not as
they've
young
got
as we
the-
think they
no,
are.
They've got
North
the
Melbourne team.
experienced players, and that means that, like, for example, I think Glenn Davis-Uniacke only had 9 touches on the weekend, but it's all right because Higgins had 35 and a goal. It's those other guys step up. But when Murphy goes out, it's like, and even if he's there, they're relying on, like, Petreski-Seaton to have 30 touches, which he's going to be a star, but he's not there yet. Like, they're just relying on these kids, but... do they just need to stick the course? Like, I think that's what they have to do.
What else can they do?
That's it. They can't do anything
But the
else.
club won't. I can see Brendon Bolton.
Being fired.
I don't know if this year or next year, but soon. Because,
They have shown
that's-
they've been impatient.
they're an impatient club, Carlton. That's their history. They've always been like that.
But this
It's hard to
seems to
change.
be their change of the course. You know, they've gone all in on the rebuild.
Well, they sacked their CEO last season, and he was doing well off field, and they sacked him for no reason.
Yeah.
I think they've got big issues. And I mean, even in that first game against Richmond, like, they allowed 71 inside 50s, and the league average is 53 over the first 4 rounds. So even the positivity that came out of that, there was some alarm bells, and we're starting to see it.
I think Richmond are number 1 for inside 50s, though.
Opening round's an outlier because Richmond came off the back of a late preseason, and they focused the whole preseason on that Richmond game. That was their grand final.
And on top of that, if they didn't kick the first 5 goals of the game, we'd probably be saying a different
If
thing.
Richmond kicked
Like,
straight,
yeah.
would have been a 50-point loss.
Ever since that first opening 5 goals that first game, their season's going downhill. And unfortunately, with that schedule, it could go from bad to worse to
That's
terrible
ugly.
to horrific. Like, there's a chance that could get really ugly, especially as we said, with Murphy's going to miss 4 weeks. Who knows with Cruiser? Cruiser seems to injure himself every week now, so they've got some issues, that's for sure.